Seligkeit by Franz Schubert. Schubert's piece Seligkeit eloquently and delightfully expresses the feelings of a young man dreaming of heavenly joys and his willingness to remain on earth, to be with the woman he loves. Franz Schubert's desire to compose to this poem is evident in the events that took place at this time in his life. Composed at the mere age of 19, in the year 1816, in his homeland of Germany, Schubert underwent disappointment and discouragement due to family problems and his own personal setbacks, a perfect setting for him to be dreaming of heavenly joys. He sets this poem to a Viennese waltz-like structure, the notes flowingly and cheerfully depicting a blissful heaven, as Schubert always interprets the poet's feelings profoundly. At this time in Schubert's life, much of his plans were not the outcome he desired. Near the end of the year 1815, Schubert's father tried to advance his profession in the schoolhouse, but his application was a failure. This was a sad time in the Schubert home, his father greatly disappointed. As the year 1816 came, Schubert, only 19 years old, was inspired by his father's hope for advancement. Thus, Schubert applied for the filling of the music master's post at the German Normal School establishment at Laybach. Though extremely talented, he was unsuccessful in obtaining this position, and the post was awarded to a local musician. Without this job, Schubert would now be unable to marry Therese. On the 8th of September, 1816, the day after his rejection to the post, Schubert wrote, "Happy is the man who finds a true man-friend, but happier still is he who finds a true friend in his wife." His sorrow is evident, as the state refused to allow men to marry without means. This was a pivotal time in Schubert's life. If he had been successful in obtaining the post, his life would have been dramatically different. His hopes of marrying the girl he loved evaporated. He had a very unhappy relationship with his father, and was in a sense trapped within the walls of his own home and the Zelingas schoolhouse, in which his father finally received its advancement. He was confined to teaching in the schoolhouse for his father, and was not allowed to receive visits from friends with which he sang and played music with. It wasn't until Franz von Schober entered his life that he gained the help and encouragement necessary to bring him out of his distressed station in life. Schober, being a wealthy and cultured man, was generous and helped him make the pivotal step towards giving up teaching in the schoolhouse and producing more orchestral, chamber music, and operas. Schober proved to be a great influence in the rest of the composer's life. Due to the difficult events that occurred within the year 1816 for Franz Schubert, he began writing music with greater feeling and philosophical depth, one of which being Seligkeit. The literal translation being Bliss, Schubert brings this poem to life by masterfully creating a Viennese waltz-like feel, with a trippingly happy tempo. The form of the piece is strophic, consisting of 3 verses, each containing identical melodic and rhythmic repetition, with 3 sections within each verse. Schubert paints the heaven-like scene portrayed in the poem through his use of ascending and descending lines in the 1/6 and 5/7 chords of E major. The piano introduction sets the joyous tone, the key being in E major and meter in 3/8, beginning each phrase with a slight ascension, then descending scale of the 1 chord, and ending in the dominant 5/7 chord. Each phrase has identical rhythmic values, quick and grouped into 6 16th note scales that then result in a 1 minor 2 or 5/7 chord, and move flowingly from one to the next. Schubert sets the scales in a way that allows the Viennese waltz-like feeling to grow, as the notes gradually descend, ending on a 1 chord, creating a perfect, authentic cadence. The piano introduction then completes itself on an 8th rest, a perfect entrance for the voice to be implemented. As the first verse begins, there is a slight ornamentation before the first descending line, a grace note, imitating the style of the piano introduction. The first words begin with Freuden sonder Zahl, blühen im Himmelssaal, translating to joys without number, bloom in heaven's hall. The descending line in the 1 chord conveys the poet dreamingly envisioning heaven's joys and their feelings of joy and excitement as the line ascends to a dissonant F5 and is held, then resolves down to an E5, creating a minor 6 chord and deceptive cadence. The accompaniment uses a series of 1 and minor 2 chords in a sort of boom-chuck style as the voice continues and scales much like the intro. This rhythmic style in the accompaniment creates a cheerful tempo, as indicated in the beginning with the German word lustig. The first verse then states, Engeln und verklärten, wie die Väter lehrten, translating to angels and transfigured beings as our fathers taught, repeating the same style of descending 1 chord that ends on a minor 2 chord, then a slight ascending and descending phrase of the major 5/7 chord. This style creates a sort of reverent, yet still cheery sense in the voice, as the accompaniment provides rhythmic support of the boom-chuck pattern. The remaining 12 measures, the accompaniment uses a series of arpeggios, alternating between the 1, minor 2, and 5/7 chords, as the top voices use melodic repetition. Schubert uses excellent counterpoint, with rhythmic and melodic independence between the voices. As this occurs, the top voice descends slightly and then ascends, jumping to an E5, the high point of the song and climax. The words translated state, Oh, there would I be, and me eternally happy, and me eternally happy. The final few measures, Schubert exploits the 5/7, then 1 chord again, in a series of 4 consecutive repetitions, while moving to a forte dynamic, as the sentence ends in a perfect authentic cadence, as a longing exclamation of desire to be in heaven. As this piece is strophic, Schubert repeats the same melody and rhythms in the second and third verse as he does in the first. However, the meaning shifts as the second verse begins to initiate the idea of a beautiful bride, moving from the poetic idea of heaven to who could be the poet's love. As the first verse states, Jedem lächelt traut, eine Himmelsbraut, translating to, Everyone smiles dearly upon a heavenly bride. This phrase's ascension of the 5/7 chord results on the word bride, with the dissonance then resolving to the E5. This provides the audience with a sense of the poet's affection for this lady, and perhaps the question of whether this woman is his bride. The poet then illustrates, Harf und Psalter klinget, und man tanzt und singet, meaning, harp and psaltery resound, and everyone dances and sings. Schubert artfully sets these lyrics to the dreamy Viennese waltz-like structure of the piece, the notes flowingly and playfully skipping in the 5/7 chord, then resulting in the 1 chord as a perfect authentic cadence. The second verse then repeats the last phrase of the verse, Oh, there would I be, and me eternally happy, and me eternally happy, with the same melodic repetition of the first verse, with alternation between the 1/6, minor 2/6, 1, and 5 chords. This phrase further expresses the idea that the poet has this love for this woman and a strong desire to be with her. The third verse, still repeating the melodic and rhythmic values of the first and second verses, then translates this idea of the woman he loves into a less ambiguous idea and reference, and into a concrete person. It begins by stating, Lieber bleib ich hier, lächelt Laura mir, translating to, Rather remain I here, if Laura would smile at me. This statement shifts the focus of the heavenly vision the poet has painted, and transfers his visions of joys in heaven to rather remain on earth with the person he loves. Schubert again repeats this line that descends in the 1 chord, then ascends in the strong dominant 5/7 chord, expressing the deep longing of the poet to receive acknowledgement from this girl he loves. It then states, Einen Blick, der saget, dass ich ausgeklaget, meaning, with one glance that says, I should end my lamentation. This line again descends in the 1/6 chord, with a predominant minor 2/6/5, and then skips up and back down in the 5/7 chord, ending on the 1 chord, again creating a perfect authentic cadence. The dotted quarter note before the end of the phrase in this verse creates stress on the word lamentation. This line again descends in the 1/6 chord with a predominant minor 2/6/5, and then skips up and back down in the 5/7 chord, ending on the 1 chord, again creating a perfect authentic cadence. The dotted quarter note before the end of the phrase in this verse creates stress on the word lamentation. This stress conveys that the poet mourns for Laura to reciprocate the love he feels for her. The end of this verse uses different words than the previous repeating line in the first and second verses, now stating Selig dann mit ihr, bleib ich ewig hier, bleib ich ewig hier, translating to "Blissfully then with her, remain I eternally here, remain I eternally here." Schubert creates stress on the final repeated phrase by sustaining the same melodic phrase as the beginning, then ending with a high point of G5 descending to the tonic. His use of melodic repetition, then lyric repetition, conveys the poet's final message of desiring to remain with the one he loves. The poet has painted this image of heaven in all its joys, in order to convey the depth of their desire to rather be on earth with this woman Lara, they believing being with her to be more blissful than what heaven must be. Schubert artfully captures the textual painting produced by the poet through illustrating the verses with a Viennese waltz-like structure and notes that are higher in register and ascend and descend in scales. His use of melodic repetition of these dreamy, heaven-like phrases conveys the message of the poet's vision of heaven and their willingness to give it all up to remain on earth the one they love. Schubert composed this piece at a time in his life that relates the messages of this poem to his own life. His dreams of what heaven must be like, as he was in a station of confinement to teaching and unable to marry the woman he would most likely desire to experience together, Freuden Sonnenzahl, joys without number.